You know, we were watching David Seymour sleep last week. No, I'm just kidding. That was in my dreams. I think being interviewed by Mihi Narangi Forbes, and he said something like, just because you say the science says doesn't mean you're right. Something like that. This is becoming a repetitive kind of comment for David Seymour. He seems to be someone who is more and more starting not just to push back against research and science, but actually use it like Trump would as a slight against someone. Oh, so you believe the research, so you listened to Fauci, did you? Not one of the examples, but you know, you'd hear that quite a bit. You believe science, eh? Okay. And it happened this morning when he basically didn't mock Chloe, but he used in a sort of derogatory term a comment to Chloe because she always cites the research. He used it like as a put down. You're getting known. Oh, I'll just play it for you. They were talking about how to solve the gang situation. It's just fascinating. And I just wonder, is he just in a little hole at the moment where this happens? Or is this a new tactic to try and prove to his followers that, you know, be damned the science and research because it's not ever going to agree with us. Let's just pretend it's not there. I don't know.
For decades and decades, we've had both sides going, well, your way has failed. No, your way's failed. And it's gone back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, similar to the discussion that we're having right now.
And I think
so. And don't the people who pay your salaries deserve a solution that's going to work?
110%, and this was one of the core recommendations, I believe recommendation 1 or 3 out of Turuki, the Safe and Effective Justice Review. It said that we need to take this out of the day-to-day political hot potato that it is and deal to the actual evidence with
But how do you do that, though?
System. Well, we take the heat out of it and we say that we're not going to make policy on the fly and this back and forth between politicians
with the greatest of
respect, and we're going to apply the evidence.
Is this policy on the fly, though?
Yeah, with the greatest
when you're talking about
with the greatest of respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just about
if they campaigned, this isn't policy. They campaigned on it, though.
And I'm sorry, Chloe, but just about everything you say is I'm evidence-based, you guys are all on the fly and political. I mean, that has become your slogan.
Are you saying that is a bad thing? It's a bad thing. That you always go to the evidence. Pff, what? Oh my gosh, it's terrible.
With the greatest of respect, Chloe. Fuck you.
Yes, we all noticed the disrespect coming as he said it, but like, you always go to the evidence. It's like, so you're pushing back against this. Now you'll notice very quickly he tries to acknowledge how much they follow the evidence. He doesn't word it very well, but he then just a bit like the conversation we just saw. He just falls back onto himself. No one picks up on it, but you have a listen to what comes next.
The facts are that this government has looked into what works.
When he says the facts are, he's citing the evidence. So he's telling Chloe she's always saying it, and then he says the facts are.
Just about if they campaigned, this isn't policy. They campaigned on it, though.
And I'm sorry, Chloe, but just about everything you say is I'm evidence-based, you guys are all on the fly and political. I mean, that has become your slogan. The facts are that this government has looked into what works. It is not going to be enough to say maybe gangs are...
See, that's just not true. Yeah, no, because we know that banning gang patches doesn't work. Actually, that's what the research shows. And that's what previous iterations of this policy within New Zealand show. So if the government knows what's working, then why are they putting this horse shit out? So why don't they put out what they know is going to work? Because this is not going to work. Ridiculous.
Part of our community, and if we're just a bit kinder, then they'll start being kind back. That was the approach of the last 6 years, and it absolutely failed. We are now saying, actually, this community has some standards. We're not going to accept your behaviour, and we're going to do a lot of other things, whether it's school attendance, whether it's prison rehabilitation, in order to ensure that we deal with the other stuff that Chloe's talked about.
I'd say put your money where your mouth is.
This government is doing both of those things, and I think, frankly, I'm a little bit tired of hearing, oh, I'm evidence-based and you guys are just all rhetorical and reductive. Actually, this government is taking steps right across the policy spectrum to provide
let's look at what's happening in Australia then. Western Australia's got a ban on wearing gang insignia and patches in public. Their courts are clogged with people, with gang members going, well, actually, this is against, you know, the Bill of Rights or freedom of expression. Some of them have won, then they're getting costs back as well. Are you expecting that to happen here?
Yep, I'm sure that if you go after a group of people who are causing disruption in the society, then they will access the courts and they will vigorously contest their rights, as they have the right to do. However, it's also critical that we don't say because they're going to push back, we'll just surrender at the first hurdle.
But what outcome do you want, Mr. Seymour? What outcome do you want with the headline gangs? Because what you're being told is the headline gangs, with the outcome that you're going to use today, is not working in Western Australia. And what the headline gangs that you're using today did not work in Whanganui. So what's the outcome you want? You already know that this is not going to work, or you don't. I don't believe they don't know, Chewy. Remember what Chester Burrows told us? Makes for a great headline and terrible legislation. I don't believe they don't know. I believe they know. So why are they telling us things that are going to work, and this government knows how to do it, whilst they're doing things that they know will not work? And if they don't know, they should not be in that position to actually be making these decisions, Chewy.
Yeah. Yeah, as was mentioned, Rodney Hyde was against this last time they tried it.
Yep.
Based on freedom of association and all of that sort of stuff. So, you know, considering ACT's position, freedom of speech and nominally a libertarian party, it's always weird when they dip into crime and punishment and then talk about, oh, everybody's got their rights. It's like, well, you know, really? And the definition of what gang insignia could be. Are they going to crack down on Destiny Church's little motorcycle gang now?
Well, that's that's an interesting one, because they talk about a criminal entity. What happens if there, this is just like hypothetical, I don't know any of this information. What would happen, let's say, if there was some kind of financial laws being broken by Destiny Church? After that, are they a criminal entity? What happens to their... You know,
what I found interesting about that criminal entity sort of thing is the language around that particular aspect of so you had to have 3 or more people in the gang, and they were talking about insignia and clothing and that sort of thing, and then it said they may be a criminal enterprise. It wasn't even a prerequisite that they were a criminal enterprise, that they may be. So, you know, if your local bowling club has a team jacket, you might be careful about where you wear it.
Coming up very shortly, we're going to have that conversation that I had this afternoon, and one of the interesting things, I'll give you a little taster, Chewy, that the associate professor said to me this afternoon, because of course we talk about that. And the point she made was, you know, as a white middle-aged woman wearing a T-shirt with a mongrel mob patch on it, she'd probably get left alone, because it's not so much about identifying the patch, it's about identifying the people. So the little white girl in a portakey walking down the road wearing her boyfriend's mongrel mob top or jacket, or her dad's or whatever, she'll get left alone, but the little brown boy walking with the same stuff on will not. So there's an element of this which will be not just about the patches, but about who is wearing the patches, which then goes against everything they're saying, because what they're saying is it's just about the patches, and it won't be. This has got about 90 seconds. Let's just get to the end of it.
And that is the difference. There's a whole lot of people out there who have been intimidated, who don't understand why they do everything right. They pay their taxes, they get up, they send their kids to school, and someone else plays by a different set of rules. Well, whether or not people want to contest it, whether or not it's going to be challenging to enforce, we've got a government that says, actually, we stand...
I think he's talking about that 311 families who play by a different set of rules and pay half the tax everyone else does. I think that's the... I mean, surely that's what it means. Surely that's what it is.
And for you, and we're going to make sure that your values are reflected in the way this country is run for a change.
Have you met with many gang members at all, Chloe?
No.
Like to talk about policy or what they need, or to hear their concerns?
I haven't held the Justice portfolio for the Greens, but I have looked heavily into the evidence.
Has anyone in the Greens met with gangs?
Not that I am aware of.
Have you met with the gangs at all?
I've met with people associated with gangs. I haven't had a formal meeting with gangs, but frankly, I think we've got to be a bit more realistic about who we're talking about here. I mean, the number one reason I was told last week that men leave gangs is because they have a daughter and because they understand how gangs treat women. And it is absolutely disgusting. We have so much of this. These are nice people. If only we were a bit kinder to them, they'll be kind back. We've got to actually raise our sights in New Zealand and have some higher standards that we're not going to accept the kind of behaviour that gangs do.
I mean, you're right.
Funnily enough, that was actually reflected in the Prime Minister, Chief Science Advisor's report, was saying that we actually have very little evidence and data.
Otherwise known as other research.
When it comes to women's involvement in gangs. And again, this is kind of the key point. If we turn down the temperature a little bit and we bring politicians around the table on the evidence, then we do have an opportunity to move forward in a cross-partisan manner with intergenerational government commitments and actually also putting the money where the mouth is. Because part of the big problem here, Lloyd, is that successive governments have commissioned these reports which have said this is how you get to the root of this issue, but it costs a lot of money.
I know, but that's
so
what we've had. We've just had, you're right, we've had so many reports and reports and reports and reports, and we come here and we talk about
There you go. The last thing I want to say about this is what I find fascinating. You're talking about the Libertarian Party, Chewy. This is I think that what I'm about to say is a really important point. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's my ego. But they're talking about making legislation based on feelings. Because he said at the start of that interview, we didn't play it, that people feel intimidated. We want to stop people feeling intimidated. I don't know if any good legislation anywhere ever can be made to stop someone feeling something. It's so relative, because what if those gang patches don't make me feel intimidated? Should they be allowed? What if they make one person feel intimidated out of the 1,000 that are at that public park? I think it's really could be dangerous to go down the path of making legislations where you're banning people for what is probably likely a right of theirs, freedom of expression, based on how some people feel and what it means to be intimidated. As I say in the interview coming up, some people are intimidated by a $25,000 Rolex and a $5,000 suit that walks into their room. I'm intimidated by that. But and the answer will be, well, that's not designed to intimidate you. I don't know about that. Some people dress in a certain way to show their wealth and stuff. Absolutely. They have the biggest chair in the office. They sit up the front. Of course it's intimidation. Different kind. So if you're feeling intimidated and that's how we're going to legislate, I have a concern around that. That's me done, Joey.
This is what this government has come to the table with. They have stopped reports. They have stopped studies. They have stopped expert feedback. They've stopped things like cultural reports and stuff like that provide more information and context into the judicial system decision-making process. They've stopped all of that. We are post-facts. We are post-evidence. We were anti-expert. We are doing this on vibes, feelings, and anecdotes. Strap in. These guys aren't going to go and talk to these people. They're not going to talk to the experts, the people that have studied gangs and how they get fed, how they get their recruits, how to get people out. We've just got vibes. Because if we start talking about experts, we don't want to encourage that. We don't want to encourage people into more learning. We want people to be scared, intimidated. I've been to a rugby game once. I found the other team very intimidating. They were different colours from me. But the thing with the enforcement of this gang patching, right? I've been thinking about this a lot because we joke about what if Aunt Mavis down the road starts wearing a mongrel mob patch, or maybe the local bowling club in their team jackets down at the pub fits the criteria. Because we are going down a slippery slope of guilt by association, and we're also putting a lot of weight on the police to use their, what's the word? The word has escaped me because I'm trying to use it. To use their discretion to decide what is a gang. And I think, if you came from another country with absolutely no context, and you saw these guys,
yep.
What? And they go, who are these guys?
I recognise that. And I recognise that brill cream here in the middle. The brill cream back here in the middle. I recognise.
If you turned around to that person and goes, oh, "Don't worry about it. It's a church group," That sounds fucking crazy. Now, they fit pretty much every visual tick box of a motorcycle gang. They've got the upper and the lower rockers. They've got the logos. They're all wearing black leather cuts and all of that sort of stuff. They're all riding Harleys. You know, so like if the law is going to be enforced equally and impartially, then it should catch them. But then some police are going, oh, well, they're not a real gang. Okay. Oh, okay. So you're going after a real gang and you decide what a real gang is.
Discretion, yeah.
Right. That is a very slippery path. And as we've discussed, one of the things that the gangs can do there is they just lose the patch, start wearing colours. And now it goes, well, he was wearing a red hoodie and we know what that means. Or
Well,
he
that's
had a
what
blue bandana and we know what that means.
I think that's why they haven't said gang patches, they've said gang insignia. So they're actually going down that path with the legislation, proposed legislation.
Yeah, they're widening it. And for a party that is about, nominally about freedom, like they're going to crack down on freedom of expression, freedom of association. And they're right. Like Western Australia's experience is exactly what they're talking about. The court system is completely jammed. People have changed how they signify where they're in the gangs, and they've disappeared to other states. They haven't solved a problem. They've created a whole bunch of new ones. And it's just when it's all shoot from the hip, don't learn from the past, don't learn anything about what we're going after. And as I said at the start of the show, know your enemy. Then you're not going to be able to solve this. You're starting a war with no exit plan and no objective. It's like the war on drugs. Okay, so how do you tell when the war on drugs is over? I will know.
Before we go as well into the paid interview, I pulled these up to use at some stage today because I think it's important. Because remember, what we're hearing from this government is about how poor the last government were and how they, were soft on crime, and like this line, they were being nice to the gangs didn't work. That was never a policy. I just want to remind us all of Operation Cobalt, which was under the Labor government. Operation Cobalt, and this was August, right? So it's for 13 months. So at the end of August, 50,396 charges have been laid against gang members and associates for offences which include violence, dishonesty, drugs and firearms offending. Police have seized 501 firearms and issued 64,000 some odd infringement offensive notices. We have seen the results from right around the country since Operation Cobalt began, says a detective superintendent, whether that has been arrests and vehicles seized in the far north, firearms seized in central Auckland suburbs, or gang members arrested moving through the South Island. Police have continued to target illegal behaviour being employed by gangs. So that's 50,300 some odd charges in 13 months. So that's nearly 4,000 charges a month. 4,000 charges a month. Crime. Soft on crime. The other thing is they arrested in that 13 months 8,000 individual members and individual gang members. And finally, just to remind you as well, when we hear about gang numbers going up, yada, 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 police cautioned that the NGL was established, this is the gang group, was for intelligence purposes and not for counting membership numbers, and explained that any increase on the list should not be seen as definitive increase in gang membership. As we said before, if you've got 500 gang members in an area, but you know of 300 of them, and then you learn of the other 200, it's not an increase of 200 new gang members, it's that 200 more have been identified. Yes, there will be some new gang members, but this whole kind of has gone up by 60% is just nonsense. It's just nonsense. 60% more have been identified. Some of them will be new. A lot, if not most of them, will be, oh, okay, this person's never been counted before. We'll count them now.